My question is around your numbers. You know, both institutions are around 20-ish, 25, which seems. And I just wondered, is there any correlation to your deli? Do you know what your deli stats are for self-employment? I'm sure you do. But are you able to share them? Is it confidential? Or?
I don't know if I have the deli stats on me right now. I don't think it's confidential. I would say that the number on deli that are reporting self-employment or business startup activity in total is higher than the number of people that we see on one of our support programs. So our question is, naturally, why are we not seeing those that are reporting themselves as self-employed? Is it because they didn't hear about us, because they feel they didn't need us, or they just don't know we exist? So that's a piece of work for us to investigate, really. We can't really do too much marketing because at the moment we're pretty much at our capacity here at Huddersfield in terms of the programs that we currently run.
I'd say beyond.
Yeah, I was being generous. We're very busy. And so if we did a huge marketing campaign, my fear, or our fear, would be that we would attract so many students that we wouldn't be able to fulfill their requests. But hence, this is why we're having the strategic review. So Delhi says higher number than we see. I don't know if that's a general thing across universities. I've no idea. But it's certainly something that we feel we'd like to know about. I mean, just last week, actually, I heard from somebody who graduated from the university in 2013. Now, they have grown a very successful business. It's currently turning over 1.3 million, and with a net profit of 350,000. Now, my question was, why do I not know who you are? And the thing is, they said, well, actually, it was a combination of things. We didn't find you, but actually we were managing quite nicely on our own. But now we want to know if there's anything that we can do for you in terms of supporting. So that's another interesting story about, you know, how people perceive if and when they're ready to access support.
I think it's the same story for us, because Ellie does say it's more than who engage with us. And again, we get graduates coming to us 2 or 3 years later. I didn't even know you existed, and
yes.
People that since have come to work at university. So I had a business when I was studying, but I didn't know this support was available. So it comes back to that question earlier, you know, how do we get the word out? Again, balancing it with, we're a tiny team, we can't take on too much. But what we're doing is, at the moment, we're in the middle of recruiting for a new role, and part of that role is going to be about getting a lot more of our resources online. So, like our Route to Startup program that we run, students will be able to access that for themselves online, whether they're, you know, down the road in Southampton or up in Edinburgh or wherever they are in the world. They can take themselves through a lot of the services that we offer. So for our distance learners, it's going to be a lot more useful. But we need that multiplier effect without us having to physically be there.
I think something that we suffer from generally in this country and maybe beyond is the kind of Dragon's Den apprentice factor. So I think there are lots of students out there who I meet them and I say, and they say, I've got, you know, I'd be interested in freelancing. And we promote the portfolio career message all the time, saying it's not about being the next Richard Branson. This could be just doing what you're doing freelance. And sometimes they say to me, well, I haven't got an idea. I haven't got an idea about starting my business. And I said, well, you're a graphic designer. And I think there's sort of, you've got to have some wacky, wild idea that nobody else has ever thought of. But also, I think they think it's quite an aggressive, cutthroat business, and actually they're put off by that before they actually get to meet us. I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think it's like we're going to interrogate them and say, well, that's never going to work, and how much money are you going to make, and give me the figures, you know. So I think the sort of the students talking about their experience is the best way forward, really.
And I suppose the other thing to say is that we try and offer different levels of support. So the event series, I would say, is very light touch, and there's about 650 students going through that in any 1 year. Then people on enterprise support, as I mentioned, we've got 90 businesses we're supporting there. So enterprise placement year does seem very low numbers, but the intensity of work that it takes to produce that, it means that it has to be that way, realistic. Well, at the moment, for us anyway. Yes.
I mean, you've mentioned already how you're looking at the fourth year, trying to integrate the enterprise placement year more into what the students do when they're resuming studies. Do you support your students on beyond their completion of their programmes?
Yes, so our offer, and Linda can tell what Portsmouth is, our offer is for up to 5 years after graduation. So, and that we find that quite a useful time frame actually, because people who are perhaps on the trajectory of going into traditional employment after university, after 2 or 3 years, if they do have start to have inklings about exploring self-employment, they've had enough time to get some industry experience and to get contacts and that sort of thing, and still have time to come back. The 5-year cut-off for ourselves is the point of registration with us. So a really great example is a student called Katie Mallinson, who came out of the business school. She came to see us in 2012, 3 days before her 5-year anniversary, and she'd been working in PR for 5 years for the same company and had just had enough. And so she signed up, and we supported her for 18 months, and she's just taken on her 5th employee. So that's a really great mechanism to be able to take people a little bit later than whilst they're still studying or just graduating. I don't know.
Same, exactly the same as us, 5 years post-graduation, we'll support them. And it's great when you do find those graduates that come in just at that cut-off point, and you see the journey they take. So,
but obviously the precondition that they've had to have done an enterprise placement year with you, obviously, before you support them. If they completed the enterprise placement year, completed their degree, gone off to work for
No, not at all. No, so enterprise placement year is actually only for third-year undergraduates. So from that point of view, it's a very limited and niche product. But our enterprise support programme is open to a student from the day they arrive at the university until 5 years after they graduate. So in theory, somebody could come in on an undergraduate degree, do a master's, do a PhD, and then have 5 years to come to us.
Just think of the size of your team and the potential demand. That
but actually, I don't know, well, it seems to work.
We had a question recently, didn't we? At EEUK, we were asked a question, it was actually UCL who were asking us, and they were considering extending their support beyond graduation. I think at the moment they don't support beyond graduation. And we actually had a bit of an email exchange around the directors of EEUK actually to ask what all their institutions do. And several came back and said, this was very common, wasn't it, 5 years?
Yeah.
But nobody seems to have any problem with being overwhelmed with people coming back and asking for support. And really, it was rather the contrary. They were finding that, okay, yes, they do have to give a bit of support to those who do come back, but actually they're really valuable alumni to have engaged with your university anyway. So any cost is actually balanced out by the benefit anyway.
Yeah.
So there was quite a strong response on that.
Absolutely, there was. Okay. The other thing I'd say is that something we've just tried, literally last month, is to engage with our alumni. And when I say our alumni, I mean our enterprise alumni. So people we've supported. It's been running for about 10 years, and we had a lot of very woolly data from the early days and a lot of quite good data from more recently. But we wanted to sort of open up the opportunity for people to come back, because we see that as adding value not only to them, but also to the people we support. Maybe they might become friends of the enterprise team. So what we did was we put on a networking event, basically to say, well, you came to us for support when you were a student or a graduate. It could be 10 years now since that happened. What are you now? Because you could be still running a business, or you could be an employee in a business, but the university and the wider networks, we could maybe help you in a different way. And that was quite a successful event as well.
How much support do you provide in-house, as opposed to sort of buying in? You know, for things like your enterprise events program and business advice sessions, things like that, how much do you as individuals provide? Where do you kind of draw the line on where you bring in an expert over and above things like IP and legal, for example?
We're very lucky because we have a lot of advice in the team. So many of those events we write and we deliver ourselves. We don't pay anybody to deliver an event. We have a lot of goodwill from our friends of the enterprise team. So from our own professional contacts, we go out and we source people who are actually wanting to engage with the university in some way. And they see that actually being able to help a student's or graduate startup is a really good thing to get involved with. We are looking at potentially buying in some of the more specialist elements. For instance, with the business school next year, we're going to be running, and maybe Claudia wants to talk a bit more about this, we're going to be running a module which is linked to the events series, and to make sure that we're getting the absolute cutting edge event presenters, it may be that we buy in somebody in some of the very specialist skills, but so far to date we haven't paid for presenters. If they live a long way away, we'll cover their travel expenses, but we haven't paid a fee.
Same as us, it's very much about goodwill. You know, we're a tiny team. The first protocol for any student really is to come into one of our drop-in clinics. So that's almost like a type of triage where we can speak to them on a one-to-one, we can be with them for 5 minutes, we can be with them for an hour, just to see where they are and what level of support they're going to need. But then it's a matter then of signposting them either to one of our programs that we run on a rolling basis, or to, we're very lucky as well, we have what we call an iPass clinic, which is an intellectual property clinic, which is run by one of our law lecturers with his students. We have a free legal clinic for the students to access. There's a lot of goodwill and other sort of enterprises that have been set up that we can signpost. So we don't say we're the experts, we're not at all the experts, but we do know where to go or where to send the students and the graduates to find the advice that they need. And I think that helps on that resource side of things. But we never pay anybody to come in and speak for us. It is very much about the goodwill of the people
And
that
as
work
generic
with us.
sort of business advisors, do you have any kind of formal qualification, like study qualifications, that sort of level?
It varies. I did, because I came from Business Link Yorkshire and I was spedied.
I've got my own, I was self-employed when I left the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical industry for 3 or 4
Yeah.
years, so my own experience I work from. So.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think one of the strengths of the team is that we're part-time and it's really flexible work. So I work freelance externally as well. Catherine?
I've got a consultancy, so I am, it's a limited company, but I've also been self-employed and worked in enterprise education for 11 years.
So I think one of the challenges of what we do is finding the right people who are willing to do this, because it's quite hard, incredibly rewarding, but not financially. You know, if I put as much time and energy into running my own business as I spend helping everybody else, probably wouldn't be sitting here. But I won't question myself too much about that. But I think having that kind of dynamic, flexible workplace is a big part of being able, because you've got to be current in a lot of ways to have credibility as well. But we don't know everything about everything.
No, but usually we know a friend who does.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of phone a friend if we get really stuck.
And I think for me, that's the value of coming to things like EEUK, and
Yes.
HEEG down the south as well, and joining those networks, and that keeps you current, and it keeps your knowledge up to date, and making sure that you are attending all the events that are around, all of them, but a lot of the events that are out there, just sharing with other people. Every time I go to an event, I learn so much, which is the downside, because I take it away and I've got lots of work to do when I get back then.
There was a question at the back.
Yeah, because obviously this is a placement year, whichever way you wrap it,
Yeah.
it's still a placement year. How's your placement team set within the university, and how closely do you work with them?
Do you want me to go, or do you want to go first?
I do work quite closely with them, make sure we have good relationships with our placement teams, and because again they do a lot of these, so they'll organise the panels, they'll get in touch with the students, organise the initial presentations, the formal presentations, because we physically can't, we just haven't got the capacity to do all that, so we do work very closely with them. We developed the proposals together originally. So yeah, it's key that we work closely with ours, because we couldn't do it without them.
Are they faculty specific, centralised?
Yeah, each faculty has their own placement office.
Do they report to the faculty, or are they central?
They report to the faculty, yeah. So the business school's got its own placement office, the creative and cultural industries faculty's got their own placement office. So we sort of sit and overarch all of them, work with all of them.
It's the same answer basically for ourselves. So each school has a placement officer, and we work with those teams, and they report to their own schools, and the relationship has developed over a number of years. So we have good communication, and actually we would, if we had an issue, in supporting a student or there was a problem, one of the first things that we would do, having talked to the student to understand it, is to make sure that the placement officer was aware that there was a problem, because they would want that communication to be able to support them too, because they want it to be a successful placement.
So does the placement office then still have final ownership in a way of the student if you're referring back to the placement office?
It's not so much referring back, it's sort of professional courtesy, I suppose, in just saying, look, we're dealing with an issue which potentially we were not expecting to happen. We just want to make you aware, because if the student, I mean, for instance, if it was a problem with them feeling settled on the placement opportunity and they were thinking about leaving or changing, we wouldn't want to have that conversation at the point that that decision was made. We just want to keep them informed, so we're just open with our communication. Dan?
Well, you mentioned as well. In terms of the businesses you support, you said 90. Was it 90? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, we've got 117 licenses, and I think that's about 90 businesses.
So, that's 90.
Yeah.
So the questions are they, for both institutions, I'm trying to get a handle on the 25, 26 volume, I'm still trying to process that. So if you're handling 90 businesses, let's say 650, I'm assuming individual students go through the events series, not 650 in total. It could be,
Yeah.
65 students.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
10
individual
events.
student. Yeah.
And they all went to 100% conversion. But so 90 businesses, are they all incorporated? And then the same question, is that the same? Do you 90? Do you have 650 going through your event series?
Yeah, similar sorts of figures, but they're not all incorporated, because a lot of the ones that we support haven't actually set the business up. You know, it is that seed of an idea. They're still working out the feasibility, the impact, doing the critique, doing the market research, that idea validation stage, and that can take quite a long time. If they're on self-employment placement, then we do expect them either to be registered as a sole trader or as a limited company or partnership, but be registered, with HMRC in some form or other.
Is that an end?
The year, the self-employment placement year, yeah. Of those 26 this year that we've had, we expect them to have their business registered.
At the end of it, or at the beginning?
At
any time?
At any time when they feel ready, preferably earlier rather than later, particularly if they are trading.
Even if they're still at the point of exploring proof of concept and haven't
No.
actually traded?
So like our games students, we wouldn't expect them, but some of them quite like to be able to do it, just to go through that process. But we do explain to them that actually they don't need to until they're trading. That is all explained at the outset to them. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'd like, and I think Phil probably agreed with me on this, is we've probably got about the right number of places given the resources we've got at the moment, without expanding the programme hugely. But what we'd like to have is a lot more applications.
Yes.
So in terms of the marketing, it would be great to be able to, to kind of recruit from a much bigger pool of students who are interested in this, because we are recruiting from the people who, as we said earlier, tend to find us and gravitate towards us. So, I mean, my personal ambition, I don't know how you feel about it, Phil, but I'd love them to be like, everybody wants to do EPY, but we still have the same sort of number of places. Maybe not everybody.
You can read those applications. Yeah, so to answer the questions, I think it was, what were the questions, Dan? Sorry. 90 businesses. Yes, so like Linda, they're all at different stages. So some are very early, just got an idea and want to have access to the space to have a dedicated place where they can work on that idea. Some are on the brink of leaving us. We see ourselves as pre-start and startup specific. Yeah. Our job is to help them move on to the next opportunity. We don't set a framework of time. What we used to do is to give 1 year to everyone, and that was a rubbish idea, so we stopped it. What we do now is, because each business will be more or less complicated and consequently take longer or lesser time to sort out, we offer a quarterly review every 3 months, so that everybody we are supporting, whether it's on enterprise support or indeed our tier 1 for internationals, whether we've seen them a lot in the preceding 3 months or little at all because they're very self-sufficient, we we check in with them, and they produce a sort of report to say what stage they're at, providing they're still gaining benefit from having access to us and the service, and providing they're not at the stage where they need to be moving on, we renew for 3 months. So that process could happen on a very simple business. It could be that they're ready to leave us in 6 months. On a computer game, they might stay with us for 2 years. Does that answer?
It does, yeah. I'm just trying to compare it to my own.
Yeah.
We do an enterprise year, and we've just really started our own student enterprise team support. So quite ironically, as someone, when you said they find it themselves, well, our careers offer was predominantly for traditional careers advice. We didn't support self-employment at all, other than in the curriculum. So we've now opened it up to students, and our volumes have gone quite high.
Yep.
So interesting to the Delhi, you know, it's much lower than the Delhi. So that was quite. It's just trying to get benchmark where we're at.
Sure.
So it's quite difficult because you're benchmarking against yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, is that good or is it not good? So
I think the relationship with careers is quite important. We're strategically separate from careers because we see the two things as being very different, but we have an excellent relationship with them, so we cross-refer. So, you know, careers will send to us, we'll send to careers.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned careers, and this is more an observation than a question really, because there's a lot of, although it's a separate sort of thing, and I take your point there, but there's a lot of commonality as well, isn't there, in that we've talked about enterprising skills with students, so some of them will go into employment and so on. And I was just going back to what you were talking about earlier on about raising awareness, although getting that balance right and not overwhelming yourself, and working with faculties really. And obviously I'm sure probably at your university it's the same as all those Welcome Week or whatever you call it, where the students are provided with a lot of information about what's going on elsewhere. I don't know whether you've tried to get into those sorts of activities.
Yeah, we do that. We do that.
Yeah.
So freshers
Just,
and
yeah.
refreshers weeks, we've tried that.
We go. I used to work. I came into higher education through the Students' Union, so we've tried using Students' Union channels as well. I think it's very much about timing.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it really is. You know, you can talk to them at the beginning, and all they're caring about is which are the best nightclubs. Yeah. You know, I know I'm kind of cliche, but you know, they're not thinking that far ahead.
No.
And I think one of the things that we're doing increasingly, and the Computing and Engineering School demonstrate this works, is working much more closely with the whole faculty. So we talk regular meetings with the placement, the head of placement team. We've got one of their tutors coming across weekly, and he just pops in for a couple of hours to help them with the technical stuff. But he's seeing what's going on. He's getting the vibe. And the funding we're now getting for those students is making the kind of heads of those departments sit up. So I think the sector specific is a really interesting model to see how you can really engage the whole cohort. So we are now invited into lectures at key times of the year to get them to start thinking about it. And we're thinking about doing that earlier because, as I say, freshers is probably too early, but particularly with computer games, they're starting to work together and form those kind of teams right at the beginning. So some of them now are thinking, right, let's get this team sorted. Ocean Spark knew they were going to do it from early days, and they can make it kind of seamless.
I think another challenge is sort of the when students or prospective students are coming to a university, what are they coming to look for at Open Days? Because we've been at Open Days too, and actually take-up is so low because they're coming and they want to know, what does the course look like, what does the area look like, what does the student offer look like, what is their careers, but they aren't necessarily for, or where's the enterprise team? It's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know, and so it's very hard to position yourself in an open day, or this is our experience anyway, to be able to say, do you know what, you really need to talk to us. We think we can help you.
Just on that point, I mean, coming from an academic perspective, I'm of course here at university in the Business School for Enterprise Development, and I think it's about sparking an interest, and I think the academic side could actually do a lot more, looking at the way that the courses are constructed in the modules. In first and second year, just discussing over lunch with one of our other colleagues about two of the modules I run in the business school are in final year, but actually I could do them being now in second year, So I'm the academic that's sparking the interest, and I can drive footfall into the enterprise placement year. It's almost like the horse has bolted in the final year, and then I've got students, I've actually got 3 that I'm desperately trying to push into the DOIEC. I think one of them has made an appointment, but it's almost like they're fearful then. They're not, yes, okay, you've got 5 years of support, but it's kind of disappeared for them, and they're sort of, I'm interested, but well, you know, I've got this, I had my placement year, and now they've offered me a job, and I think I'll go for the job because it's more safe for me to do. If I'd have seen them in second year, I'd have sparked the interest. Then it would have been perfect for the enterprise team to come on board and actually take those students out and drive them through. But I think until we shift the modules around, it's almost like it's happening too late.
You're exactly right. That's what we're doing at Portsmouth. We've started, it has been working really well. So we do the inductions, then we've been saying to every member of staff that wants us to go and do that 5-minute information overload in induction, we say, okay, we'll come and do it. What we then want is to have a conversation with you as, you know, a member of staff and academic, and we also want to come in, as you said, at a strategic point in the year and do more in-depth sessions with the students to raise the awareness. But what we found has happened is those academic members of staff have had those conversations with us, so we now sit together and design new units for first and second year students, and we're beginning to see that pipeline really beginning to flow through. An example is so in psychology we've created a social enterprise unit. So in the second teaching block, the students run across 12 weeks. We do about 6 to 8 hours at the beginning of intensive tools and idea generation and looking at social enterprises. We set them off then, they go in their teams, develop their social enterprises, come back to pitch, do their assessment. But what's happened as a result of that, we've got 3 students wanting to do the self-employment placement year and continue with those social enterprises they've developed. So by getting in earlier, working much more closely with the academics, it really does help go through, you know, as I put up on the QAA, that awareness, that mindset, and then to the effectiveness. So you're really just following that path through.
I also think there's a much bigger cultural issue that I'm hoping EEUK, and we're starting to try and work on, is a kind of public consciousness about what we're doing, because you know, you hear these arguments, well, why would I want to go and do a degree? I want to start my business, I want to be the next Richard Branson, so it's an either or. And when I've been to Westminster Forums, they're talking about graduate businesses. You know, there's not an understanding that actually the future is so different for our students and our graduates. It's so different. We don't even know what it's going to be like yet. But the more skills they have for those portfolio careers that they're heading towards, the more help they've had, the more support they've had, the kind of more success stories we've had. And I just think there's a real misunderstanding even outside of universities about how we can do this and how we can impact on it. And there's a lot of debate around that at the moment. And I just think we need that louder voice influencing and maybe looking at some of the harder impacts of what we're doing over time, so we can actually really start to get that big influence that we need to then get the investment back into what we're trying to do. Because really, we're kind of forerunners in this, we're trailblazing. It doesn't feel like it, but you know, we are really starting to try and do things differently, and that can be quite hard and can take quite a lot of time. But I think EUK are in a brilliant position to start to influence those policies and those agendas.
Coming from a schools background, I think one of the potential issues is that for young people coming through education, they experience enterprise often in a competitive format, of which most of them will lose at. So it may be that one of the issues is they're getting to university and they already have a self-perception that they have experienced that, but it's a bit like, am I a 100 metres runner? Well, I do remember that appalling experience at sports day where I came last, so I'm probably not. So I think one of the issues is how enterprise is being socialised for younger students, and although I can see definitely working with students at university how exciting and valuable competitions can be, if that is the only experience, you know, 5 to 16-year-olds have of enterprise, that pipeline won't be built earlier, and indeed kind of sort of a perverse perception of enterprise is being built into the system now. So I think there's a really important role for universities to support the wider educator network, I mean your schools and colleges, to develop a much more nuanced and sophisticated and broad conception of enterprise and support schools to do that.
I mean, you look at Zach from Ocean Spark. He was one of the naughty. He's self-proclaimed. I was one of the naughty boys at school. They didn't know what to do with me. I was always kind of, ADHD and everything. You take him back to his school and you say, "Here's Zach. Look what he's doing now." There's nothing more powerful than actually getting them to see the potential of these young people. Just because we're not a sausage factory. We're not churning them all out in the same way at the end.
And I think maybe thinking about Zach, that is another one of the issues in enterprise education, that probably what's going on is there is an element of volunteer bias. So we, hope and design programmes that we want to make an impact on young people. But, Zach and 3 colleagues there had a certain set of characteristics and qualities coming in. And obviously there's a range of those qualities in the young people that we deal with. But they are coming in with certain characteristics, and maybe the pool of students who have got that kind of appetite for risk and uncertainty, because when they're thinking about how their finances stack up over an unpaid year of self-employment, I think you've got to have something in your belly and a bit of metal to think it's going to be me that has to pay the bills, I'm not on a paid placement. So I think that there's something about the pool of those sorts of students being smaller. Anyway, so the important thing as practitioners is to think of, with the range of students that we've got, how and in the best ways can we support them.
The afternoon tea and cakes are here. So we've got a choice. Are there more questions?
We could just do a networking.
Yeah. So, in the interest of Linda being able to make it home to Portsmouth tonight, I think maybe we say cheerio to Linda when she's ready, when she's had her tea and cake. And then we'll go straight into the last session, which means we'll finish slightly early. Is that allowed, Kate?
Yeah, certainly. We always aim to finish early rather than late.
Yeah.